The American and Indian climbing team had just established their high camp and they were ready to make an attempt on the summit. Most of the team had been severely altitude sick for the duration of the expedition, and things hadn't gone quite as planned. But the team was intent to finish the job that they had started out to do, to stand on the summit of one of India's most sacred summits, one of the steepest peaks in the world, with steep cliffs dropping thousands of feet to the glacier below. These men were on a secret mission, not only to quietly climb this hallowed mountain, revered by Hindus everywhere, but to carry out something far more substantial, something connected to the future security of the United States of America. You see, the United States had a lingering fear, rightly so, of a recent nuclear bomb test in a neighboring country. And the US feared that a military offensive might be in the planning. So they wanted to gain as much intelligence as they possibly could, without anyone knowing what they were up to. Behind the scenes, this secret mountain espionage mission was being orchestrated by none other than the CIA. Yeah, you guessed it, the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States. And a National Geographic photographer who was an elite American mountaineer from Bozeman, Montana, provided the perfect cover for the mission. And if not for all hell breaking loose, these climbers might have accomplished their mission. Situated at their high camp in the thin air of altitude, they uncoiled cables, an antenna was assembled, and at the center of it all was a strange object, something the likes of which no one had ever seen. They didn't even understand it or its mysterious powers. And more importantly, the mountain climbers who were working with that equipment had no idea just how dangerous it really was. It was a compact generator built and powered by radioactive plutonium-239, designed not for mountains, but for espionage. It was a high-stakes spying device, and this was during the Cold War, when no country trusted another country. This is all really true, so before these mountain climbers could finish setting everything up, and importantly, before they could actually attach this secret device to the mountain, everything unraveled. A raging storm slammed into the mountain, clouds closed in, the summit vanished from view in a whiteout. Climbers could barely see the climber right next to them, and they couldn't hear themselves yelling over the howling winds. One wrong move, and this would not only be the end of the mission, but very likely be the end of their lives. Then a crackling sound came over the two-way radios. Someone from down in base camp was shouting orders at them. In no uncertain terms, the climbers were ordered to abandon the mission. And the equipment that they were working with, they were told to leave it right there. And in that device that they were carrying up that mountain, the plutonium inside created heat that could actually generate electricity, which made possible many space missions by the American NASA program. And the NASA space program knew just how effective this plutonium-239 was. It actually helped keep equipment working in the bitter cold of outer space, and they figured if it works so well in outer space, of course it's going to work on top of a Himalayan mountain like Nanda Devi. Now, I don't know if anybody remembers these NASA space missions, if you're as old as me, back in the day. They were a big deal. I can remember them actually stopping school so we could watch Neil Armstrong walk on the moon. It was everything, and we studied the astronauts and learned about how they lived in space, how they slept, and the things that they ate to stay healthy in space. And I guess they probably had these high nutrition drinks with them that were loaded with nutritious minerals and vitamins so that when they were up there, they would stay fit and ready to do the work they were supposed to do. I'm talking about things like AG1, which is absolutely mandatory for people who are interested in their gut health, in their immune system, and in taking care of their brain. Personally, I've never enjoyed taking vitamins. That's why I like AG1 so much. It mixes into water or oat milk or coconut water, and it really tastes good. It has vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and more with no GMOs, no added sugars, and no animal byproducts. AG1 carefully sources their ingredients for easier absorption, for potency, and for nutrient density, so that I get the most out of the nutrients that I consume. One 8 to 12 ounce AG1 provides all the vitamins, probiotics, and whole food sourced ingredients that I need at home or on an expedition. AG1 is perfect, and especially so during the holidays when you get a little bit stressed out, you have a lot of work, and you're also attending a lot of social gatherings, maybe not getting the sleep that you need. And now AG1 contains more vitamins than ever before, and it's clinically known to fill in the nutrient gaps. The pre and probiotics in AG1 also help support your gut health and digestion. And for me, I'm a first thing in the morning kind of guy, and I use AG1 to get the day started. And I love the flavors. AG1 now comes in original, citrus, berry, and tropical. Personally, I enjoy them all. I like to mix it up and have a different one each day. And during this season, AG1 is giving the viewers of this channel a special offer for first-time buyers. Head to my link in the description below, and when you first subscribe to AG1, you'll get an AG1 welcome kit, a bottle of vitamin D3 plus K2, a morning person hat, and you'll get to try each new flavor of AG1 and their new sleep supplement, AGZ. Be sure to subscribe in my link that's in the description below, and you'll unlock 7 free gifts worth $126. Sidetracked again. When you hear what happens next in the story, you're going to be just as amazed as I was. And now, fast forward 60 years, and believe it or not, nobody knows what ever happened to that nuclear device, that top secret device that the mountain climbers were trying to install at the top of this mountain. An avalanche had reportedly swept it away, and just a few years ago, a massive explosion unleashed a torrent of rocks, mud, and ice into the valley below, taking the lives of hundreds of people. They say that the culprit is very likely that device that was left behind in 1965 by a team of mountaineers on Nanda Devi in northern India. This whole story would not ever have happened if it was not for the chance encounter of two people who met at a cocktail party in 1964. First, let me introduce you to these two exceptional men who met that day at the cocktail party. The first was a major general in the United States Air Force named Curtis E. LeMay. And he met an accomplished American mountaineer, one of the first human beings ever to stand on the summit of Mount Everest in 1963. His name was Barry Bishop. He was from Bozeman, Montana. He was a National Geographic photographer. He was a full-time employee of them and truly one of the great mountaineers in American history. And as he stood there, they had their drinks in their hands. Barry Bishop regaled Major General LeMay with tales of what it was like to stand on the top of the world and look out hundreds of miles to mountain peaks far in the distance. LeMay could feel it himself, getting swept up into the emotion of what it must feel like to be literally on the top of the world. And that's when a light bulb went off in Major General LeMay's head. Think about it. 1964, the United States is involved in a fierce Cold War. They trusted nobody, and they were trying to make sure that the Soviet Union didn't get the best of them. Fear was high, and the United States could trust nobody. And therein is the seeds of how this whole crazy story on Nanda Devi got its start at that cocktail party in 1964 with Curtis LeMay and Barry Bishop. LeMay got to thinking that from the top of these Himalayan peaks, you could see right down into other countries from those mountaintops. Countries that you didn't trust, countries that you thought you very well could go to war with. And you might understand LeMay thought that the country that Barry Bishop at the time was looking down into from the summit of Mount Everest could be an enemy of the security of the future of the United States and all of its citizens. And so when you look at a map of Mount Everest, you can see that the summit and the ridges of the mountain make up the borders of two countries. You got it. Nepal in the south, and in the north is China. I think you can see where I'm going with this. A few days after the party, Barry Bishop got a phone call from Major General Curtis LeMay, who said he had an idea of the utmost importance, and he wondered if Barry Bishop would be interested in meeting with him. LeMay at the time was head of the United States Air Force, and he was one of the architects of the nuclear weapons strategy, and a person who was called a Cold War hawk. LeMay got to thinking after hearing Barry Bishop regale him with these awe-inspiring stories from the summit of Mount Everest. Well, he came up with a radical plan. Here's what he came up with. The CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, would bankroll a group of American mountaineers that would enter the Himalayan mountains quietly, bringing with them backpacks loaded with top-secret surveillance equipment. Barry Bishop and his teammates would just saunter up one of the most difficult mountains in the world to climb, none other than Nanda Devi. Piece of cake, right? If this guy can make it up Mount Everest, why not Nanda Devi? And at the top of that mountain, his team would have the charge of installing a sensor designed to intercept radio signals from, yep, you guessed it, China. The device could pick up signals thousands of miles away, but needed to be at the top of the mountain to pick up those signals from so far away. Now, this wasn't just any mountain. They'd be climbing the great and perilous Nanda Devi. It's the 23rd highest mountain in the world, thought to be harder to climb than most of the 8,000 meter peaks. It had only seen a handful of ascents and had killed just as many people trying to climb the mountain. Nanda Devi was and still is a hallowed and very dangerous peak. And for the people who are big fans of the mystery of Mallory and Irvin, you might recognize the person who is credited with the first ascent of Nanda Devi. It was none other than Noel Odell. You got it. The Noel Odell from the 1924 British Everest expedition. He was the last person to see Mallory and Irvin alive as they were headed up high upon the northeast ridge before they disappeared. Odell's partner on that expedition for the first ascent of Nanda Devi was Bill Tillman, and it took place in 1936. And it kind of makes you wonder, maybe if Mallory had chosen such a skilled high-altitude climber as Noel Odell on that fateful day on Mount Everest in June of 1924, maybe the ending would have been a lot different. And believe it or not, it was until 1950 that ascent on Nanda Devi by Odell and Tillman was the highest peak climbed by any human being. And now I'm going to tell you another reason why you don't mess with Nanda Devi. Well, maybe it's because Nanda Devi is named after a revered Hindu deity, primarily known as the bliss-giving goddess. On most days, she's seen as protective and benevolent, but if you catch her on a bad day, or you try to trick her, like the Americans were in 1965, she becomes fierce when angered. And this highly talented group of American mountain climbers, with the help of some Indian mountaineers as well as a Sherpa support staff, were just about to find out Nanda Devi isn't to be messed with. They were carrying something up the slopes of this bliss-giving goddess that was about to make her very, very mad. Plutonium-239, it's the stuff that made up the main explosive component of the bomb that blew up Nagasaki in World War II. And just think, I mean, this plutonium-239, they were carrying up the mountain a third the amount of the plutonium that was used in that bomb on Nagasaki, and that bomb actually ended World War II. And that plutonium-239, it's a radioactive material. And the particles, it says, cannot penetrate skin, but if it's inhaled or ingested, well, that's a key danger. Once inside the body, they say what they call alpha radiation damages tissue at the cellular level, greatly increasing cancer risk. And these American, Indian, and Sherpa mountaineers were carrying this stuff on their backs. And in a minute, you're going to find out just how cozy they got with this plutonium-239. Now, to be fair, this whole story was broken in 1976 in Outside magazine, and it was done by a writer named Howard Cohn. And when he wrote the article originally, the information was still so sensitive that they ultimately redacted all the names of the participants of the expedition. So they would refer to an elite American mountain climber. That was Barry Bishop, but Barry Bishop's name wasn't in the article, nor were there names of any other participants in this covert operation. Barry Bishop himself was terrified of the possibility of people finding out. It might literally destroy his career at the time. So he didn't want to tarnish his reputation, and people went so far as to write letters to the higher ends of the government, to news organizations, to make sure that none of these names were included. This was of the utmost importance, not only to the individuals, but to the security of the United States in this covert operation. And so in an in-depth article printed in the New York Times very recently, it does mention a bunch of the names because, well, firstly, most of the people who were taking part in this operation are no longer living anymore. But in the article in the New York Times, it says that there was a file cabinet found recently in Barry Bishop's garage in Bozeman, Montana by his son. These documents show that he was studying explosives, receiving intelligence on China's missile program, and mapping out summit plans for Nanda Devi. And now get this, there were bank statements, fake business cards, photographs, gear lists, and food menus, right down to the chocolate that the climbers would eat. And that makes me like Barry Bishop even more, talking about chocolate and snacks. He had his priorities on straight, absolutely, at the time when he was putting that list together. And Bishop and his teammates were going to install on the slopes of Nanda Devi a portable nuclear listening spying device right on the top of the goddess herself, Nanda Devi. What could go wrong, right? It's only a nuclear device being planted on top of the blessed mother goddess Nanda. But if Bishop's team was successful, soon the CIA would be intercepting radio signals from high-altitude missiles launched from China. But the really kind of neat thing that makes it like a motion picture or some kind of novel about spies is that all the other climbers, including Bishop on the team, they had to take an oath at CIA headquarters. And it says that these oaths bind together spies everywhere. Basically, that oath is to never to reveal anything to anyone unto death. Let that sink in. By July of 1965, Barry Bishop and a team of 6 Americans, they did a test run on Denali, or Mount McKinley, installing and setting up a very similar device. And by then, the entire team had been trained in the use of explosives just in case they needed to blow a hole into Nanda Devi in order to affix the device to the mountain. Okay, so finally, it's September of 1965, and the entire team is helicoptered to base camp on Nanda Devi at about 15,000 feet in elevation. And now the operation has begun, and the security of the United States and all of its citizens is, well, just in their hands. No big deal, right? And so they had with them, as I had mentioned earlier, a team of top Indian climbers and a support team of Sherpa. And now here's the first indication that the expedition probably wasn't going to go quite as planned. None of the climbers on the team had properly acclimatized. So the minute they landed at base camp, most of the team developed severe headaches and the things that happen when you are altitude sick, like nausea or dizziness, the lack of appetite. So things were already going a little askew, and they still had 10,000 more feet to go, 3,000 meters, for them to accomplish the mission. And now here is where this whole thing goes into a complete another realm. As I had mentioned, there was a team of support Sherpa, and as it would turn out, they would jostle for the opportunity to carry the backpacks that were loaded with this plutonium 239, which we know is not good for any living being, but what it does do is it generates heat, warmth, like gigantic hand warmers. And these Sherpa support staff were jostling for position to be the one to carry this in their backpack because it would warm their bodies up. And as it says in the notes, they put them in their tents, and at night, they would cuddle up next to these backpacks filled with plutonium. And by mid-October, more than a month into the operation, things were not going well. There had been tons of snowfall, and journal entries of Barry Bishop read, high winds, tent was lost. October 5th, short of food. 11th, snows all day. October 13th, very discouraging evening. October 14th, Jim tried again to move up, but again developed a severe headache. And October 15th, almost constant snow, frostbite, coming to a crux. This is not a good sign, and you wouldn't believe it, but of all days to make the decision on the following day where he made that entry about frostbite coming to a crux, they make the decision to go for the summit, to complete the mission. It's kind of a now or never thing. Things are not getting any better, and maybe the mountain will relent and give us that one little opportunity to get up there, finish it, and get the heck off the mountain. And so there they are at Camp 4, well over 20,000 feet or 6,000 meters, probably closer to 23,000 feet or 7,000 meters, somewhere in that vicinity, in a position to set up this listening device. And so the Americans and their Indian comrades on the mountain, they got together all the cables, they started unfurling them, putting the equipment together, ready to put it into the mountain and affix it on their summit bid. And up they go, and the summit is just within reach, and you guessed it, a Himalayan blizzard absolutely pounds down upon the mountain. High winds, whiteout snow condition. The climbers can barely see each other, let alone hear each other over the howling winds. And then one of the intelligence operatives on the mountain, a man named Sonam Wangyal, he was on the team and he said, quote, "We were 99% dead." And down at Advanced Base Camp, Captain M.S. Kolai, he was the highest ranking Indian official on the mountain, ostensibly given the ultimate last decision on what the team was going to do, go up, down, finish the expedition or what. And rightly so, he began to panic and he jumped for his radio. He got his two-way radio out, went on there, and he yelled up, "Camp 4, this is Advanced Base. Can you hear me?" Captain Kolai hears, "Yes, this is Camp 4," through the howling winds. And Captain Kolai responded, "Come down quickly. This is an order. Don't waste a single minute." The captain didn't care about the mission anymore. He was trying to save the lives of the men up the mountain battling that storm. And he said, "One more thing. Secure the equipment, but don't bring it down." So the climbers stashed the CIA gear on a ledge and made a hasty retreat down the mountain. And all of them survived, leaving that equipment up there, hanging precariously on a ledge on one of the steepest mountains in the world. They all lived to see another day. And now here, it just keeps getting more and more surreal, keep unraveling layer after layer. A group of the climbers returned the following year, and wouldn't you know it, an avalanche tumbled down the mountain and washed away all of the CIA equipment, carrying with it also that plutonium, that nuclear radioactive device was gone. Never to be seen again, but very possibly heard from again, because on February 7th in 2021, thousands of tons of rock and ice broke off near Nanda Devi, rushing like a gigantic tidal wave down into the villages below the mountain. It was like a river of mud, rock, and ice, and there were people working in the villages below. More than 200 people lost their lives in this tidal wave of mountain that came down, rushing through their villages. All started by a mysterious explosion that occurred high up in the mountains of Nanda Devi Sanctuary. And many of the villagers believe that this disaster happened because of the massive amount of heat that was released from the exploding device left there by the CIA team. And another thing that could happen sooner or later, there could be remnants of that device in the glacier that will one day melt out, and an unsuspecting passerby, maybe a young child, could pick that dangerous plutonium up and maybe breathe it in or touch it and become very, very sick. So this story certainly isn't over. It's still happening today. Now, Barry Bishop, as I had mentioned, was from Bozeman, Montana, and not too long ago, his son, Brent Bishop, who also became a very well-known and highly accomplished mountaineer in his own right, was going through his garage recently and found a box containing files from that secret CIA mission. And I kind of like to think that Brent's take on this whole story is the right take. He leaves it pretty well by saying of his dad's involvement in that expedition for the CIA. He said he's proud of what his dad and the team did or tried to do, and that they had a unique skill set and that they were able to use to benefit the country even if things didn't go as planned. I guess this one is to be continued. This story might unfold sometime down the road. We might never know, but certainly I'll be watching and waiting and listening for anything to happen in that area regarding the plutonium that is somewhere down the mountain. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And I also want to give a nod to Brent Bishop, whose father, Barry Bishop, was immensely helpful to me way back in the day when I would write him. And Barry Bishop himself would offer me a lot of advice and lent a helping hand as I was navigating my way into the adventure and mountaineering filmmaking realm. So if you've enjoyed this video, I hope you'll take a moment to subscribe, and also be sure to check out the members section. I have a ton of exclusive content in there, and you'll be able to also find that in a free level over on patreon.com/Everest Mystery, where there's different levels of membership. Also check out my merch page. It is the holiday season. Lots of good stuff like these hoodies here for hiking or just for looking really good. Also, be sure to do a good deed. Don't ask for anything in return. Make the world a better place, one tiny step at a time. Peace be with you.